It was supposed to be just another quiet day, but that quickly changed when an officer unexpectedly showed up on my property. No knock, no warning, just a sudden appearance on my doorstep. The moment she crossed the boundary, I knew something wasn't right. As someone who values personal freedom and privacy, I couldn't let this slide without getting answers. Who gave her the right to step onto my property uninvited? What was she looking for? And when I politely refused to show ID, things took an even stranger turn. You won't believe how the situation unfolded, her attitude, her responses, and how far she was willing to go. It's moments like these that make you question how much power certain individuals think they have and whether they truly understand the limits of their authority. This encounter was not just frustrating, but an eye-opener, and I made sure to document every moment. Stay tuned because what happened next is something you need to see for yourself. As she stood there, looking more confident than the situation warranted, I couldn't help but wonder what had brought her to my doorstep in the first place. There was no warrant, no visible reason for her presence, and yet she acted as if she had every right to be there. I asked her why she was on my property, and her vague, dismissive response only added to the growing unease I felt. Was this some kind of intimidation tactic? Or was she simply hoping I'd comply without question? I could feel the tension rising as I calmly reminded her that this was private property and that she needed a reason to be here. But instead of providing one, she doubled down, insisting she didn't need permission to stand where she was. Her demeanor was bold, almost too bold, and it left me wondering, was she hiding something or just trying to assert her authority? I stood my ground, knowing that how I handled this moment would define the rest of the encounter. I could tell she wasn't used to being questioned, and her body language started to shift, arms crossed, shoulders tense, a slight edge in her voice. "I don't need to explain myself," she said, brushing off my questions like they didn't matter. But they did matter. I knew my rights, and I wasn't about to let someone step onto my property without a valid reason. I asked again, keeping my tone steady, trying to keep the situation from escalating. "If you're here for something legitimate, just tell me, what's going on?" But instead of an answer, she started asking questions of her own, my name, what I was doing, even why I seemed so defensive. It felt more like a tactic than genuine curiosity, and the lack of transparency only made things worse. As the minutes dragged on, I started to notice small details, her radio crackling faintly, her eyes scanning my property as if she was searching for something. Was there more to this visit than she was letting on? Or was she testing boundaries, hoping I'd slip up and give her an excuse to dig deeper? The air felt heavier with every passing moment. I could see her growing more impatient, her posture stiffening, as if she was waiting for me to back down. But I wasn't about to. "You still haven't told me why you're here," I said firmly, refusing to let the unanswered questions slide. Her silence was unsettling, almost like she was weighing her options. Then, out of nowhere, she started stepping closer, crossing an invisible line that made my pulse quicken. "You need to cooperate," she said, her voice more forceful now, as though authority alone could override the lack of explanation. But cooperate with what? That was the question that kept running through my mind. Why was she here, and what was she really after? I kept my stance, every word carefully measured. This is private property, and without a warrant or a legitimate reason, you can't be here. So, what's the real story? The tension between us was almost tangible now, like a rope stretched to its breaking point. And then she did something that completely shifted the dynamic, leaving me with no choice but to act. Just as I thought I had her figured out, she suddenly reached for her radio, speaking in quick, muffled phrases that I couldn't entirely make out. The change in her tone was sharp, almost urgent, and it sent a chill down my spine. Was she calling for backup? Why would she need backup for a situation like this? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them adding up. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside, the tension was building. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. She didn't answer right away, her eyes scanning the area again, like she was looking for something or someone. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. Was she expecting someone else to show up? Was there something happening beyond what I could see? The whole situation had taken a turn I wasn't prepared for. I had been so focused on standing my ground that I hadn't considered the bigger picture. And now, with every second that passed, it felt like something bigger was about to unfold. As I stood there, waiting for her next move, the sound of a car pulling up caught both of our attention. I turned to see an unmarked vehicle stopping just outside my property, and out stepped another officer. My heart raced as I tried to piece together what was happening. Were they here for something completely unrelated, or was this all connected? The second officer approached, calm but assertive, and immediately addressed the first. Their conversation was quiet but tense, and I could tell something wasn't adding up. Then, almost out of nowhere, the second officer turned to me and apologized. "There's been a mistake," he said, his tone measured. "We're looking for someone, but this isn't the property we're supposed to be at." I stood in disbelief as the first officer reluctantly stepped back, her confidence now replaced with visible frustration. Just as I thought the situation was over, the second officer leaned in and quietly added, "Stay alert. It seems there's been some confusion, but it's better to be cautious moving forward." And with that, they left, leaving me with more questions than answers, and the unsettling realization that this might not be the end of it. As their car disappeared down the road, I stood there for a moment, trying to process everything that had just happened. The whole encounter left me feeling uneasy. A mistake was the official explanation, but it didn't sit right with me. If they were looking for someone, how could they end up on the wrong property so confidently? And why the evasive behavior from the first officer? I went back inside, locking the door behind me, my mind still racing. This wasn't just about protecting my property. It was a reminder of how important it is to know your rights and stay calm under pressure. Had I not stood my ground, who knows how the situation could have unfolded. Later, I reflected on the officer's parting words, "Stay alert." It felt less like a courtesy and more like a warning. I'll never know what really brought them here that day, but one thing's for sure. This experience taught me to always be vigilant and never take anything at face value.